Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mythstorie, a podcast about myths and history. I'm Bryant. I'm here with my permanent, infallible
I don't know about
guest.
infallible. I am a co-host, though.
We have a cool topic today. But right before I left work, I talked to one of my coworkers, Rachid, who I've known for a long time, who's from Morocco. And he said that we should look into sahir, but it's an Arabic word. And the way he sort of described it to me was sorcery and witchcraft, like local magic, stuff that's like voodoo, like
Sure.
the way we kind of think of voodoo, where it's, like girl's mad and she pokes a doll.
In my reading, though, I found references to the jinn, or genies, as we call them.
Yes.
It's not the same thing as we think of as a genie.
No.
But basically, they're what we think of as demons. Culture.
Yeah, it's really wild, but yeah.
We definitely talked about the Latin before we started.
Right. And so specifically the word sahir, so when Rachid told me this, I expected it to be, I don't know, that is an Arabic word. It means witchcraft, it means sorcery, it means magic. It can be used as those things, probably in Harry Potter, I imagine.
Sure.
The Arabic translations. But so, and before we go on, when I was doing some of my research, there's this really good book from, it's the Oxford Companion to World Mythology. It's a really encompassing book, especially about really obscure stuff. David Leeming wrote it, and he has a great quote. We've talked about Samhain, the Irish mythology, Welsh mythology, these things that kind of seem distant enough to talk about, and common. I mean, Thor, we don't think we're upsetting anyone if we're talking about Thor like he's not here. But anyway, Leeming writes that he treats the sacred narratives of the great religions, including monotheistic Abrahamic religions, as myths. He doesn't do this to depict them as religions, but simply because to a believer in one religion, the stories, especially the supernatural ones of another religion, tend to be seen as myth rather than history. So while some things seem fantastical to us, they're very real to other people. And just like how the idea of sahir seems kind of wild, and jinn, it's very real to a lot of people. So anyway, you've got a great little connection.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up too the concept of the evil eye, because I ran into this with
Yes. Yeah, I saw some funky articles.
Yeah. And we don't really have this concept in America per se, but the evil eye, think of it as the way someone looks at you when they're envious of you. And now imagine that look is in a spiritual sense. Many cultures have ways to ward off the evil eye. I know there's like some hand gestures and stuff that you can do in certain cultures. I want to say that in Italy, they have like an evil eye thing. But anyway, they're these amulets you can wear, and they tend to bear the symbol of an eye to kind of ward off that magic as well. So I ran into that a little bit.
Yeah.
When I was looking into sahir. But sahir is it's a form of black magic, we can say.
Yeah. And
it's actually illegal to practice it. So in certain countries and stuff. But the practices are found throughout, I guess, like, what countries did you find? It was mostly like Middle Eastern.
Morocco, yeah. There was an article a news article I read was from a website called the J Post, which is the Jerusalem Post.
Okay.
Middle Eastern countries, and North Africa, the Muslim majority countries. It didn't seem, I didn't see a huge connection to like Southeast Asian countries
Sure.
that practice Islam. I didn't really see a connection to that. It was mainly a Middle Eastern thing, and I think a lot of this goes to medieval Middle Eastern scholarly works. I think is where a lot of this originates, and that's where we get a lot of. Yeah, that's when a lot of the writing was done, even for the Western world, and that was like the Arabic nations were at the apex of like science, math, and things like that during that period of time when they were ruling north, most of that area. So I think that's why it carried it and pretty much stuck in that area.
Okay, because the interesting thing about you saying that is that I actually found one of the things I talk about is from Indonesia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so maybe it might be a little bit...
Yeah, no, that's cool.
More widespread. I didn't know if you had more info on it.
No, I didn't see anything. I wasn't like specifically looking for, but no, I didn't see anything.
So basically the best ways to combat this magic are studying the Quran, forcing the person who has done the sahir to undo it, if you know who it is, finding the amulet that caused the sahir and destroying it. You can also use 7 green lote leaves and drink a tea made with them and then bathe with them, or you can see a healer. So there's several ways you can go about it. None of these will guarantee success, though. If you're meant to die from the magic, you will. The idea of sahir reminds me of the voodoo practices, like we talked about.
Yeah, that's how Rachid sort of talked about it. It was very local. It was very practical in a lot of ways, you know, like, and it had roots, like deep roots into the society.
So I have a bit of a voodoo story. When my grandfather was little, his housekeeper became very ill and could not work. My great-grandfather, he was a dentist, so he definitely believed in medicine. So this isn't like the first thing he did. He couldn't figure out what was wrong with her, so he takes her to the local in-town doctor. The doctor couldn't find out what was wrong with her. So he brought in several physicians from out of town. Everybody looked at her, couldn't figure it out. So he was basically on his last straw. I mean, this woman was like dying in her bed. So he goes to a voodoo practitioner. And the voodoo practitioner told him that he would cast a spell and for my great-grandfather to announce a visitation for the dying woman. And the third person to visit her would not cross the threshold. And that's how he would know that that was the person that cast the spell. He was told to follow this person home, and they sort of devised an amulet. It was a rabbit's foot, and they wrote out the Lord's Prayer and wrapped the rabbit's foot in it. Okay, so that's the amulet that they're using against this magic. So my great-grandfather goes home, he announces the visitation, and for basically the next day. Mm-hmm. When the third person arrived, he didn't cross the threshold. So my grandfather, or great-grandfather, follows this person home, and he takes the amulet, and he was told to bury it under this person's porch, and so he did this. I don't know how he got away with it. It's a weird story. The next day, the woman was completely healed.
What?
Isn't that crazy?
That's some sahir right there.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Exactly.
Some local voodoo. Wow. Like, how do you find a voodoo practitioner?
I think that it was a small town in South Carolina. You know, like, I think that maybe he just knew of... Sure. And especially, I mean, he was the only dentist in town, so he probably just knew everyone, you know?
By their teeth, yeah.
So maybe he's who they called if he got in that airplane.
Right, yeah.
Accident. But anyway, so it is a very weird story.
Yeah.
But it's very similar, you know, because there's a person who can help you. Mm-hmm. You have to bring in God and prayers to cure this. You can only be saved by someone who knows about the spiritual world, or by crossing into the spiritual world yourself. You need a guide.
Yeah.
So that's what really reminded me of it was this, you know, I mean, you have to recite the Quran. Okay, well, let's write the Lord's Prayer on a piece of paper and wrap a rabbit's foot in it. Back to Sahir, I found a modern story in Indonesia that I was telling you about a woman who had nails and other mysterious objects under her skin. And this account is from the doctor who treated her. She went to the doctor, and first he tried like scientific methods, sort of like how the other story started, and nothing worked. Like he tried removing the objects, the nails and that sort of thing from under her skin. He surgically removed them, but days and even sometimes hours later they would reappear in her body.
What?
He even had an X-ray done to make sure that she was free of metal, because this kept happening. Yeah. And then he sends her off, and like a day later she has all this metal in her. He decided to consult some magical practitioners who told him to recite the Quran as he dressed her wounds. He started doing this, and it made the woman immediately sick to where she coughed up hair and a metal wire. After days of this treatment, she was thankfully cured. Sure. Her husband ran off just before this, though, so they think he was the one did the magic on her.
That's wild.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
How do you get that? That's pretty specific.
Yeah.
Sounds like some Tim the Toolman evil crap. Like,
I don't know. I mean, you know, if you want to leave somebody, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you, like, when I kind of first started Googling, you know, before I was able to refine it, there was so many like terrible YouTube videos about like it was, misogynistic, like, all Moroccan women use, but, black men, like, it was this terrible stuff. Yeah, and it was so bad.
Well, that was a man.
I know, yeah, and that's, I know.
Well, it's sort of like the idea that women poison.
Right,
yeah, don't do a direct...
Exactly, that's what I was thinking, too. It's very impassionate, and it usually has to do with some sort of lover quarrel thing, like, make a man love me, or punish someone who doesn't love me, that kind of thing.
I do want to talk about my sources. So, islamqa.info was where I got the information about what could cure Sahir.
Oh, cool.
And then the Straits Times, which was the Star Asian News Network, was the actual story.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, Wikipedia has a really cool section on it. I was really glad because once I figured out that's what Sihr is, just, like, it'd be like maybe Googling witchcraft, like hitting a pin drop. But Wikipedia does, and it's very connected to the jinn, which has some really cool ties. And like I said, there's a big connection to medieval times, so like 9th century. There's a lot of, especially like naming jinn. There's a really cool crossover between fallen angels listed in the Old Testament and their names as jinn. There's some weird crossover there between that. Now I'll say this, but this is kind of wild. This is on Wikipedia. It mentions this. I don't know. It says citation needed, and it definitely would need a citation. It's about Rwanda. Yeah. So it actually says that during that horrible conflict, genocide, that there were local Islamic communities in Rwanda that were completely ignored because of fear of retribution from jinn, especially, or specifically, and things like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there was a deep root there. Again, citation needed. I couldn't really find much beyond that, especially
there's like power in that.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a downer of a note to go on. So yeah, Sihr, S-I-H-R. I meant to say that at the beginning too. So this is a deep topic. We've only kind of scratched the surface in a lot of ways. Maybe we can there's definitely some tales about jinn that I saw that could be a podcast in their own right. Yeah. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Mythstorie. Thank you, Rachid, for suggesting that. I'm going to bug you when we come back to work about some more stuff to talk about regarding that. And I need to quiz him a little bit more too on it, kind of like how he feels about it. Does he think it's real, but is it, where is it in his mind, that kind of thing?
Yeah,
that'd be really
does he think about it, or is it just something that's...
Right, yeah. Everyone, we'll see you next time on Mythstorie.
Oh!